son. And in so doing, choose you as a champion. Now, speak my name!
I don't know your name, sir. We just met.
My name
Shazam!
Shazam!
Shazam! Shazam!
Shazam.
It's fun to say.
It's the wish of an adolescent to be an adult. It's the wish of a mere mortal to be a superhero.
That could let anybody reading the book, any kid, imagine that they are the hero.
Every kid wants to be a superhero.
He's one of very few superhero characters that is genuinely stoked to be a superhero. More often than not, you've got a character who is begrudgingly like, oh, I have to save the world again. Billy Batson is so excited.
Wait. We still don't know if the suit is bulletproof or if you are. Shoot him in the face.
Shoot me in the face! In the face? It kind of tickles.
You're dead.
Shall we?
Hi guys, welcome once again to another episode of DC Watch. We are the three DC amigos. So we have Pretty Fly for a Filipino guy. How you doing,
Hello.
Pretty Fly? And we
How's it
have
going?
Dave Bratton. Dave, how you doing?
Good to see you guys.
Dave had this idea about us doing a video on the Shazam movie and Shazam generally. And why is that, Dave? Because you are
Huge Shazam fan.
the hugest. I mean, I like Shazam, but Dave is really like out of this world for Shazam. And when we started talking about it, we started saying, the Shazam movie is kind of a movie that people don't appreciate that well. And the question in our mind is, why is it such an underrated movie? Why do fans not like slobber over it like Dave does?
Slobber.
So Dave, why don't you start us off?
It's one of those things where this film came out, Shazam came out, and I thought it was terrific. As did the critics. It has a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. 90% is as good or better than 21 of the currently released 30 Marvel films. And, I kind of took a look and I saw how much money, the grosses for these Marvel films. And so many of them are making a lot more money. Shazam made about $365 million. It was liked by the critics. It was a modest hit. It didn't cost a lot to produce, I think around $100 million. So it was a hit, but not a huge hit, the way some of the Marvel films are. And I was disappointed in that. I feel like it was overlooked, perhaps because the character isn't as well known. If you're a fan of great superhero films, give Shazam a look, because it belongs with the better Marvel films. I'm not saying, look, Avengers and Infinity War and all those types of films with tons of superheroes, those are different kinds of movies. Those are team movies. Those feature lots of different characters. But as far as the single superhero character film, this is up there with a lot of the really good ones. And I hope if you're a fan of this genre, you'll check it out.
And Dave, you hit on a lot of good points that I think we want to emphasize. But the one thing that popped into my mind when you mentioned this single hero movies is Captain Marvel on the Marvel side. Now, why am I thinking about that? I know you know, because Shazam is the original Captain Marvel. And I think if you put those two movies together, Shazam is like up here somewhere, and Captain Marvel, I could barely get through the thing.
Joe, my opening comment was Shazam is the superior Captain Marvel movie. So thanks a lot,
Thanks
Joe.
for usurping you.
Ironically, both films were released roughly a similar time frame.
Yeah.
One of the things this movie did really well is it developed the antagonist, the villain. Mark Strong as Savannah, he's up there for me.
Yeah.
Certainly, I mean, and it's one of the issues, not trying to only harp or be negative about the MCU, because I love their films too. A lot of their villains aren't very memorable. Most of them are forgettable. When you have a great MCU film, you usually have a great villain, and a bunch of them don't. So
yeah, the origin story was done like very efficiently in this movie. Like first half hour, we got both Billy's and Savannah's origin story, and it's funny that they linked the two together. Like both of them had parental issues where they weren't accepted. For the rest of the movie, one went on a different path than the other. It's always funny, like Savannah's dad's played by, what's his name, Glover?
John Glover.
Yeah.
John Glover, who played Lionel Luthor in the television show Smallville.
Right.
No one raises a bald DC supervillain the way John Glover does.
And he also voiced Edward Nygma in the animated series, by the way.
He did.
Yeah.
My. Can we actually have a brain beneath that pointy cowl of ours?
But where I'm getting at, though, is that, like, the whole... Part of what I like about Shazam is that it has a very strong theme of family. And it's not just family is blood. They even quote it in the movie as a pseudo-family.
Don't touch my brother!
What, do you need your fake family to stand up for you?
The bullies called it a pseudo or fake family. But at the end, he felt like, all right, this is my family, Where Savannah went on a different route because he never had that growing up.
He had family, but he was mistreated.
He had his dad and he had his brother, but then his dad favored his brother a whole lot more.
And blamed him for some things that happened in the film check it out, you'll see his relationship with his family was terrible and ends really badly.
Yeah, and that's the strength of this movie because of that. That theme shows you what a good family can do to a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and one of the things, Dave, you mentioned that it was the journey of the hero and the whole family thing, and I think it came to a fruition or a point when he shared his powers with his siblings.
And Joe, you just made me realize, and maybe it was obvious, Billy was not approached by the wizard until he joined his new family.
With your heart, unlock your greatest power. Thrones of our brothers and sisters await.
His new family helped make him the hero. He, in turn, then made them heroes. So it just shows what the support of a family can do for one person and can do for the whole. One of the things, I don't see it in all superhero movies, but I enjoy it if it happens, is that moment where you get the chills because something so cool and meaningful happens. Superman 2, when Superman kneels before Zod and then takes his hand and crushes his hand and reveals he's got his powers and they don't. The hair on the back of your neck stands up.
Or when Captain America did the same thing.
Oh yeah, when Captain America in Avengers Endgame, when he caught Thor's hammer, chills. In this movie, I got the chills when all the kids said Shazam, and you see Freddy's crutch slowly hit the ground and all the smoke, and all the kids emerge as heroes. It was such a great moment. This film was loaded with great moments.
Well, I just want to go back to the whole family thing because when you pitched this, I rewatched the movie. But the first time when I watched it was back in 2019. That was before I had my daughter. So now watching the movie again, I kind of latched on to the whole theme of the family, kind of what drew me into liking this movie more. Actually, it's kind of sad though that we're seeing the end of the Snyderverse because the whole Snyderverse was really about family. If you think about it, Man of Steel was about fathers, right? BVS, Batman vs Superman, was about mothers. Aquaman was about the struggle of finding the family's identity, right? Because his father was human and mother was Atlantean. Wonder Woman was about what does it mean to be a child? Like what as a child, what are your responsibilities and what you might go against your mother's wishes.
Stepping out on your own when the time is right.
With that said, Shazam fits perfectly into the universe.
You know what this proves, and I knew this all along, that no matter what movie, TV show, or comic book we talk about on DC Watch, everything eventually goes back to Snyderverse. I mean, that's just the way it is.
That's just the way it is, you know?
That is the way to take
as sure as the rising sun.
The one thing, I'll go back and say this is somewhat of a criticism, perhaps, but in some ways it worked. And that is that the plot was kind of two things. The plot was kind of all over the place in some ways until you got to the point, where they kind of, gelled and fought together. Because, originally, think about it. Shazam was looking for someone pure of heart, right?
Yeah.
And that wasn't Billy. I mean, Billy was not a good kid, right?
So, it's interesting because I know there's some Captain Marvel fans, the original Captain Marvel, who don't like calling the character Shazam, who took exception to the fact that Billy is not like this pure noble person. What I would point out is you've got to take a look at the larger picture when it comes to storytelling and the hero's journey. If you start out with someone who's good, noble, and perfect, there's no character arc for them. So I didn't feel that Billy was a bad kid. I felt he was a kid who'd been through a lot, and when push came to shove, he had that goodness inside of him. Freddy was being bullied, and Billy couldn't abide that. He tried to keep his head down, walk away from it, and then he heard what these kids were saying to Freddy and some of the other foster children with whom he was living, and he stepped in and he defended them. That's one of the things I liked about the movie.
No doubt. Yeah,
he became the hero. And for those who are like, no, Billy's just good and perfect from the beginning, I'm like, guys, that's a boring story. That may work in old comics. That may work in 1940s comics. It doesn't work in a 2019 film. So
exactly.
For the critics that say who didn't think that Billy was a pure kid, because you can point out in the beginning of the movie he tricked cops and locked them. But to me he had a pure intention of finding his mom. He didn't have access like the way the cops did.
Right.
So I think the intention was pure though. Yeah, superficially it doesn't seem like Billy Batson's squeaky clean, but I think compared to Savannah,
right,
where Savannah appeared squeaky clean, he had the glasses, properly dressed, he had nice combed hair, but he made a bad decision.
No! What happened?
Only the purest of hearts can resist their temptations.
Well, this whole episode is branded as Shazam versus MCU. And let me point out one thing that Shazam really did well was how the movie handled comedy as opposed to the MCU films. In a way that every character seems to be like Tony Stark. But what I like about what they did in Shazam is that they designated the comedy to one character, which was Freddy. When you have one character be the funny person or primarily, he wasn't the only. Other characters stand out, because they have their own characteristics. And even with Freddy is the perfect candidate to be the comic relief, because he even said it himself that he has different experiences because of his condition. Yeah, and then he just goes through life being funny because he just needs to laugh it off.
You look at me and you're like, why so dark? You're a disabled foster kid. You've got it all.
It's a way for him to be seen, and
to make it through life. So that's just my thing. That's what I like the most about this movie.
Well, Marvel has these kind of colorful and great shots all the time, I think in the movies. And I think Shazam had similar stuff. But the thing that you mentioned, Lenny, and I think this is the part that to me is, I think a lot of people like it and the reason they like Marvel movies, but to me it kind of sometimes is overdone, I think, as you guys are mentioning, is everybody is witty
Yeah.
Everybody has a witty retort to whatever it happens to be. Everybody.
We swore an oath to protect the time stone with our lives.
And I swore off dairy, but then Ben & Jerry's named a flavor after me, so...
Stark raving hazelnuts.
Not bad.
A bit chalky.
A hunk of Hulk burning fudge is our favorite.
That's a thing? Whatever point it...
Is that what brought these people together? Because they're all witty and try to one-up each other on the dialogue?
Yeah.
So I think sometimes that's forced a bit. And it works well, generally, but I think sometimes you look there and you say, okay, they had to throw that in, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Lenny. You don't see that in you don't see that in any DC movie. But in Shazam, I think it was done in a really well, so that you had some of that, especially when Billy becomes an adult.
I'd like to purchase some of your finest beer, please. Bad guys.
That tastes like actual vomit.
That was kind of funny, but it was more kind of physical humor in some ways, right? And that to me is the part that people really kind of react to more from a comedic standpoint.
But with that said, though, it has some pretty dark elements too.
There are elements of almost like horror in this film.
And it's because the director succeeded with a bunch of horror movies. He did Annabelle, Sandberg, David
Sandberg,
but
Pony Smasher on Twitter, I think.
And he let a lot of those horror elements come out, especially with Savannah, So, so there's plenty of stuff for everybody.
There is.
Shazam, and Dave, you mentioned this in the beginning, is not an A-lister, from DC. Not an A-lister.
Ironically, he was in the 40s. He was the biggest. He was outselling Superman and Batman back in the 40s.
Right.
And I think one of the things we're going to do is put a link to a Shazam documentary in the YouTube video. Check that out too if you want to learn more about the character. But now because of his history, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's not Superman. He's not Batman.
Not as well known.
He's not Wonder Woman. He's not Spider-Man. So he's none of those. He's none of those people. So think about this. I mean, that might have hurt him early on, and we mentioned that already in terms of the movie. But who is the director that has taken B-listers and made great movie and TV characters that people love and want to watch out of these B-listers? Who is that?
James Gunn, the head of DC Films.
Right. So when we take a look at Shazam, The Fury of the Gods, and I know he was not involved with this, but he knows how to build this thing up. My hope is that the marketing and the way they present this, is similar to like a Guardians of the Galaxy or Suicide Squad. Because if you do it the right way, or Peacemaker for that matter, if you do it the right way, more people will be interested in it. And I'm sure if they've got this, same type of writers or same writer, I'm not sure who the writer is on this, and directors and all of that, because normally they followed through on it. I think that there's the possibility that they're going to treat, this is DC Films, is going to treat, Shazam Fury of the Gods better than DC EU guys, the old people, treated Shazam. That is, as you mentioned, Dave, putting it out at the right time, marketing. I mean, give them some marketing money. I mean, there was hardly any marketing of Shazam, as I remember, and make sure that people are aware of the character in some way. And there's ways of doing that.
I'll also point out James Gunn is actually a co-lead of DC Films. His counterpart is Peter Safran, who produced the first Shazam film. And so he's got a little stake in that, in terms of emotional, investment. He helped, that was his baby. He helped develop it. So you're right, Joe. I hope that these guys support this film, really do everything they can to make it succeed. Zach Levi's made comments about how he's friends with both Gunn and Safran, and he hopes it continues. He knows the future is unsettled. Who knows? It's one of my favorite superhero franchises out there. Look, I love superhero films. This is up there for me. I don't know if it's top 5 or whatever. I'd have to go through a ton of films to tell you, but it's really high up there for me. It's one of the superhero films I find most compelling and rewatchable.
So on that, everybody, turn off this video in about 2-3 minutes. Hit the like button, subscribe, and go watch the Shazam movie, because Shazam Fury of the Gods is coming up soon.
Shazam's on HBO Max.
HBO Max. All right, everybody. Take care. Say bye-bye, everybody.
Take care. Thanks for watching.
All hands on deck. Say my name.
Billy!
No, not my name. No, say the name that I say to turn into this guy.
Shazam!